Dark clouds moved slowly over a silent forest. The air was thick and heavy. Every sound, every rustle of leaves felt alive. Strange blue lights glowed between twisted trees, and a cold wind carried a smell of wet soil and danger. Through that fog, a thin figure stumbled forward. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes bright like fading stars. She was not human. Her name was Lyra, and she came from a world far away, a world that had forgotten her. Lyra held something close to her chest, a small bundle wrapped in torn cloth. Inside, a child slept weakly, breathing in short, shaky gasps. The child's skin shimmered faintly in the dark like moonlight on water. Lyra's feet bled as she walked over sharp stones and roots. Each step hurt, but she didn't stop. Behind her, smoke rose in the distance. The wreck of her ship still burned, its metal screaming as it cooled. Her people had left her there to die. They had said she was a burden, that her child was broken. But Lyra didn't care what they thought. This child was her heart, her reason to live. She looked around the forest. The trees were enormous, so tall they hid the sky. Strange glowing insects floated near her face, and she flinched. Somewhere far off, a deep roar rolled across the hills. Her child stirred and made a small sound. Lyra's voice trembled. "Shh! It's all right, my little one. We'll find shelter soon." But she didn't believe her own words. She could feel something watching her. Not one thing, many. Eyes in the dark, silent and patient. She found a hollow under a fallen tree and crawled inside. She wrapped her child in her arms and listened. The forest breathed slowly around her. Raindrops started to fall, soft at first, then harder. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, too tired to move. Her stomach hurt from hunger. Her mind ached with fear. She thought of the stars she once saw from her home planet, bright and warm. Here there was only cold and shadow. The child coughed, and a small light flickered from their tiny hands. Lyra quickly covered them, whispering, "No, no, hide your light. They will see, then snap!" A branch broke somewhere close. Lyra froze. Her heart pounded. She pressed her child against her chest and held her breath. Another sound came, a slow, heavy step. Then another. Something big was moving nearby. Lyra peeked through the hole in the fallen tree. Between the trees she saw a shape. Tall, broad-shouldered, carrying something long and shiny. For a second, she thought it was one of her own kind, but the shape moved differently. Slower, heavier, it was a human. She didn't know that word, but she felt it. Different. The man moved like a hunter. His clothes were rough and dirty, and a small light blinked on his chest. His eyes scanned the darkness. Lyra's breathing grew shallow. She didn't know if he was friend or enemy. The man stopped suddenly and crouched. He touched the ground where her blood had fallen. He looked at his fingers, then slowly turned his head in her direction. Lyra's whole body shook. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Her child whimpered softly. The man looked toward the sound. He raised a metal stick, his weapon. Lyra's heart broke with fear. She whispered to her child, "Don't cry, please. Stay quiet, my star." The man took a step closer. Another. The light on his chest reflected in her eyes. For 1 second, their gaze met through the shadows. He saw her, thin, hurt, holding a small, glowing baby. She saw him, human, strange, with eyes full of something she didn't understand. Not hate. Not greed, something else. Before she could think, a loud roar echoed behind them. The ground shook. Something huge was coming. The man spun around, weapon ready. Lyra held her child tighter. In the flashing light, she saw the shadow of a monster. 8 legs, red eyes, claws scraping the earth. The man shouted something she couldn't understand. A bright flash exploded from his weapon. The forest lit up with fire and noise. The creature screamed. Lyra covered her child's ears. The sound hurt. Smoke filled the air again, then silence. When the smoke cleared, the creature was gone. The man stood breathing hard, scanning the darkness. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. He turned toward Lyra's hiding place again. His face was hard, but his eyes were softer now. He said something in his language, calm and low. "Don't be afraid. It's over." Lyra didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. For the first time since the crash, she felt a spark of something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. As the rain fell around them, the human took one careful step forward, and Lyra whispered to her child, "Maybe Maybe we are not alone. And somewhere deep in that wild, alien forest, a story of kindness was about to begin. The morning sun rose slowly over the forest. Thin rays of light touched the wet ground, and steam rose from the leaves after the long night of rain. Birds called from the high trees, but the forest still felt strange. Too quiet, too watchful. Eli wiped the dirt from his hands and checked his weapon. He was a hunter, living alone in these wild woods. For years this forest had been his home. Silent, dangerous, but familiar. He knew every trail, every footprint, every sound. But last night had been different. The creature he killed, it wasn't from this world. Its skin had shined like oil and its blood had glowed faintly blue. And near the place of battle he had seen her, that strange silver-skinned woman with eyes full of fear. Eli had spent the rest of the night unable to sleep. Who was she? And that child she held? What kind of being could make such soft light from their hands? Now as he followed the footprints again, he moved slowly, carefully. He wasn't hunting, not this time. He was searching. The trail led deeper into the forest toward the old riverbed. He saw drops of greenish blood on the stones. He crouched, touched them, and felt the warmth still there. She couldn't be far. A memory crossed his mind. The day his ship had crashed on this planet years ago. He had been a soldier once, part of a failed mission. He survived, but his crew didn't. Since then, he had chosen silence. No more wars, no more people. Just him and the wild, but last night's woman, something in her eyes had broken that silence. Fear, pain, love for her child. He couldn't ignore it. He climbed over a fallen log, then stopped. Ahead, under the shadow of a tree, he saw movement. A small hand glowed faintly in the dark. He raised his weapon, then lowered it again. Slowly, he stepped forward. "Hey," he said softly, not sure if she could understand. "It's okay." Lyra woke at the sound. Her whole body tensed. The man was here, the one who killed the monster. She didn't know if he was danger or safety. Her child stirred in her arms, eyes blinking open. The baby reached toward the man's light. "No," she whispered, holding the small hand down. "Stay." Eli stopped a few feet away. He could see her clearly now. Her face was tired, dirty, but beautiful in a strange way, like light under water. The child looked weak but curious. He put his weapon on the ground and lifted his empty hands. "I won't hurt you," he said slowly. "Do you understand?" Lyra tilted her head, trying to read his face. The sounds from his mouth were strange, harsh. But his eyes, they didn't shine with anger. Eli noticed the wound on her leg. It looked deep and infected. He took one careful step forward and pointed to it. "You're hurt," he said, then mimed rapping something. Lyra's body shook. She didn't know the words, but she understood the meaning. Still, she pulled back, whispering something soft in her own language, almost like a song. The child made a small sound, reaching toward Eli again. Eli smiled a little. "Hey there, little one," he said. Lyra looked at him, then at her child. For a long time, she said nothing. Then slowly she nodded. Just once, Eli understood. He stepped closer, opened his pack, and took out a small piece of cloth and a bottle. He cleaned her wound gently. She winced but didn't move away. The smell of medicine filled the air. For the first time, Lyra saw something strange about this human. His touch was careful, gentle, not like the ones who had left her to die. When he was done, Eli handed her a piece of dried meat. She looked at it suspiciously, then sniffed it. It smelled strange, but not bad. The child reached for it eagerly, and Lyra let them take a small bite. Eli sat back, watching them. "You've got a tough little fighter," he said quietly, though he knew she wouldn't understand. But Lyra smiled faintly. Somehow she felt his kindness in his tone. For a while they sat in silence. The wind whispered through the trees. The moment almost felt peaceful. Then a sound came from far away, deep mechanical humming. Eli looked up sharply. Lyra's face turned pale. She knew that sound. The ships. Her people. Eli saw the fear in her eyes. "What is it?" he asked, standing up. Lyra shook her head, clutching her child. She pointed to the sky, whispering in her language, "They come." The humming grew louder. The treetops began to tremble. Eli grabbed his weapon and motioned for her to follow. "Come on, move!" But Lyra hesitated. Her child was too weak. She couldn't run far. Eli turned back and saw her struggling. Without thinking, he lifted the child into his arms and offered his hand to her. "Trust me," he shouted. For a second, Lyra just stared at him, this strange human risking himself for her. Then she took his hand. They ran through the forest as bright lights began to flash through the trees. The sound of engines filled the air. Behind them, a cold metallic voice echoed in the wind, searching, calling her name. Lyra's heart broke. They had found her. But this time she wasn't alone. A human was running beside her, holding her child, his eyes full of determination. And deep inside, for the first time she believed, maybe this man would fight for her when her own kind would not. The forest grew darker again as clouds gathered over the sky. Rain began to fall in thin, cold lines. Eli led the way, moving fast through the thick trees, his boots sinking into the wet ground. Behind him, Lyra struggled to keep up, limping slightly but refusing to stop. In his arms, the small alien child made soft sounds. Tired, weak, but alive. Eli could feel the child's warmth through the thin cloth. He didn't understand why he cared so much, but he did. Maybe because years ago no one had cared for him when he was the one lost. "Almost there," he muttered. They reached a hill covered in green moss. Hidden behind the vines was a metal door built into the earth. Eli pressed his hand against a small panel, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside was darkness, but safe darkness. He looked back at Lyra. "Come in." She hesitated, eyes full of fear and exhaustion. The last time she had entered a metal place, it had been her ship, the one that betrayed her. But the rain was getting heavier and her child was shivering. Finally, she stepped forward. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Inside, the place was small but warm. A soft yellow light filled the space. It was an old survival shelter, a single room with a bed, a fire unit, some supplies, and a small table made of scrap metal. Eli placed the child gently on the bed and turned on the heater. Lyra stood near the wall, still holding her arms around herself, watching every move he made. Eli opened a small box and took out some dried food and water. He handed them to her. "Eat," he said softly. Lyra looked at the strange human food, then at him. She took a cautious sip from the bottle. The water was clean. She gave some to her child, who drank greedily. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the heater and the rain outside. Eli sat on the floor, watching them from a distance. He wanted to ask questions, who she was, where she came from, what happened to her, but he knew it was useless. She couldn't understand him, and maybe she didn't trust him yet. He sighed and looked at the child. "You've been through hell, haven't you?" he said softly. Lyra heard the tone of his voice. She didn't know the words, but she understood kindness. It was something she hadn't heard in a long time. She sat beside her child, gently touching their forehead. The fever was gone for now. She looked at Eli again and whispered, "Thank you." The words came out broken but clear. Eli blinked in surprise. She spoke. Not perfectly, but enough. He nodded slowly. "You're welcome." Lyra pointed at herself. "Lyra," she said. Then she pointed at the child. "Novi." Eli smiled slightly. "Lyra. Novi." He repeated the name softly, letting them roll off his tongue. Lyra pointed at him. "Human?" He chuckled. "Yeah, human. Eli." He placed a hand on his chest. "Eli," Lyra repeated it carefully. Lee." A small, tired smile appeared on her face. For the first time, the room didn't feel so cold, but the peace didn't last long. Outside, something screeched in the distance, a long, high-pitched sound that made the metal walls vibrate. The child woke and clung to Lyra's arm. Eli grabbed his weapon and turned off the light. The room fell into darkness. They waited, silent, listening. Another sound, claws scraping on metal just above the shelter. Whatever it was big. Eli held a finger to his lips, signaling Lyra to stay quiet. She nodded, holding Novi close, her eyes wide. The sound moved slowly across the roof, then stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Then, thud. Something hit the roof hard. The child gasped. Eli aimed upward, finger ready on the trigger, breathing slow. Minutes passed. Then the sound faded. The creature was gone. Eli turned the light back on and exhaled deeply. "Damn forest," he muttered under his breath. Lyra looked shaken but calm. She had lived in fear for so long that danger no longer surprised her. Only survival did. Eli sat down again, rubbing his face. "You're safe here," he said, even though she couldn't understand. Lyra looked around the small room. It wasn't much, just walls and warmth, but it felt safer than anything she had in days. She touched the metal wall softly, then whispered, "Safe." Eli smiled. "Yeah, safe." The child yawned and curled up beside her. Slowly, Lyra's eyes began to close too. Eli watched them. Two beings from another world sleeping under his roof. He didn't know why he was doing this. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was something bigger. Something human. He turned off the heater light and looked out the small window slit at the dark forest. Somewhere above the trees, far beyond the clouds, a faint red glow pulsed in the sky. A ship's light, maybe, or something worse. He frowned. "Whoever left you here," he whispered. "They might come back." Behind him, Lyra stirred in her sleep, as if she could feel the danger too. The forest outside whispered in the wind, cold and endless. Inside the shelter, 3 lives shared one fragile breath of peace, and none of them knew how short that peace would be. The night outside the shelter was darker than before. The forest was silent but not calm. It was the kind of silence that felt alive, like something was waiting to move. Inside, the small heater glowed softly. Lyra sat near it, holding her child close. The little one slept peacefully for the first time in days. Their soft breathing was the only sound in the room. Eli sat by the door, cleaning his weapon. He didn't trust quiet nights. He had learned long ago that danger liked silence. His eyes moved to Lyra. She was awake, staring at the metal wall like she could see through it. Her silver eyes were full of worry. He spoke gently. "You should rest." Lyra looked at him. She didn't understand all his words, but she understood the tone. She shook her head. "No sleep." "They come," Eli frowned. "They?" She pointed upward toward the sky. "My people." Her voice was soft, almost broken. "They—" "No mercy." He sighed, checking his rifle again. "Then we'll deal with them if they come." Lyra didn't reply, but she watched him. This strange human who spoke with such confidence, as if he could fight the whole universe with just his hands. Hours passed. The heater's light dimmed. The forest wind outside grew colder. Then faintly Eli heard it, a strange clicking sound like metal tapping stone. He froze. It wasn't the rain. It wasn't the wind. He stood up slowly, signaling Lyra to stay quiet. She held her child tighter, eyes wide. The clicking grew louder. Then thud. Something landed on the roof. Eli grabbed his weapon. "Stay back." The roof groaned under the weight. Dust fell from above. Then claws scraped along the metal, searching for a way in. A deep growl echoed from outside. Low, heavy and full of hunger, Lyra whispered. "Forest beast." Before Eli could respond, the lights flickered, then went out completely. The shelter fell into darkness. The child woke and began to cry softly. Lyra covered their mouth, trying to keep them quiet. Eli turned on his small flashlight and pointed it at the ceiling. A dent was forming in the metal. Whatever was up there was strong, too strong. "Damn it," he muttered, loading fresh ammo. The roof bent inward suddenly, claws tearing through. A huge black creature dropped inside, its skin glistening like oil, its mouth full of sharp, dripping teeth. 6 eyes shone in the beam of Eli's flashlight. Lyra screamed and shielded her child. Eli fired. The gun roared, lighting the small room with flashes. Bullets hit the creature's body, making it shriek and twist, but it didn't fall. It lunged forward, claws slashing. Eli rolled aside, the creature's strike missing him by inches. He fired again, hitting its leg. It stumbled but didn't stop. "Go," he shouted at Lyra. "Hide." She ran to the far corner, clutching Novi. Her eyes glowed faintly, and suddenly a soft blue light shimmered around her, a thin, transparent shield. The creature turned its head toward her, sensing the energy. Lyra lifted her free hand. Her veins glowed bright silver. A wave of energy burst from her palm, hitting the beast and throwing it back against the wall. Eli blinked in surprise but didn't waste the chance. He fired one more shot straight into its head. The creature screamed one last time before collapsing to the floor, motionless. Silence returned, broken only by their heavy breathing. Smoke filled the small room. Eli coughed, waving it away. Well, that was new. Lyra stood shaking, her energy light fading. The shield vanished. She looked at him with tired eyes. We safe? Eli checked the creature's body. For now. He looked at the hole in the roof. Cold air poured in, along with faint sounds from outside. More growls far away. Not one creature, many. They hunt in packs, he said quietly. We can't stay here. Lyra hugged Novi close. Where? Eli pointed toward the door. I know a place. Higher ground. If we move now, we can make it before sunrise. Lyra hesitated, looking at the child. Novi was weak, but the fear in her heart was stronger than exhaustion. She nodded. Go. Eli grabbed supplies, ammo, food, flashlight. He glanced at Lyra, still glowing faintly in the dim light. You've got some fight in you, don't you? Lyra tilted her head, not fully understanding, but the tone made her smile a little. They stepped out into the night. The forest was filled with mist and glowing eyes. Every shadow moved. Every sound felt closer than before. Eli walked in front, weapon ready. Lyra followed, her hand glowing faintly to light the path. Behind them, the destroyed shelter lay silent, smoke curling from its broken roof. As they climbed a hill, a faint red light flashed across the sky, the alien ship searching. Lyra stopped and looked up, whispering, They find me soon. Eli looked at her, his face calm but determined. Then we make sure they regret it. She stared at him, this human who fought monsters for her, who didn't know her world or her pain but still stood beside her. For a moment, under the strange sky, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Not fear, not sorrow, trust. The night was not over, but for the first time, she believed they could survive it together. And deep in the dark forest, two different worlds took one more step toward becoming one. The sun rose weakly through the misty trees. Golden light filtered through the fog, turning the forest into a quiet dream. After a long night of running and fighting, Eli finally stopped at a rocky hill beside a small stream. Here, he said, looking around. We rest. Lyra nodded, too tired to speak. Her child, Novi, slept in her arms, peaceful, unaware of the danger that still surrounded them. Eli built a small fire and set up a makeshift camp. The smell of burning wood mixed with the scent of the wet forest. He handed Lyra a metal cup filled with warm water. She accepted it carefully, watching the steam rise. Warm? She whispered softly, as if testing the word. Yeah, Eli said with a faint smile. Warm is good. They sat near the fire in silence. The forest was calm again, but both of them knew it was only for a short time. Eli studied her face, silver skin marked with scratches, eyes that held whole galaxies of pain. He wanted to ask so many things, but didn't know where to begin. Finally, he said, Lyra, why are they after you? She looked up slowly, her expression changing. Her eyes turned sad, distant, as if the question had opened a door she never wanted to open again. For a while, she said nothing. Then she placed her hand on her chest where a small pendant hung, a round silver disc cracked and faintly glowing. She held it out for Eli to see. Beacon, she said in her soft voice. Beacon? Eli repeated. Like a signal? Lyra nodded. Call my people, Eli frowned. You can call them here? Lyra's eyes lowered. Yes, but no call. I not want them come, he leaned forward. Why not? They could take you home. Her fingers tightened around the beacon. No home, she whispered. They leave me, say my child. Broken. Eli's jaw tightened. They abandoned you? Lyra looked into the fire. They say only strong blood live. Novi, not strong. So they send us away. Her voice trembled. For the first time, Eli heard something almost human in her tone. Sorrow, shame, love. He looked at the sleeping child. He doesn't look broken to me, Eli said softly. Lyra smiled weakly. Novi, special. Heartlight. But my people fear what they don't understand. She looked at Eli again, her silver eyes glistening. Human, not fear me, he shook his head. No, I've seen worse monsters. You're not one of them. For a moment, silence returned. The fire crackled softly, the sound comforting. Then Lyra looked at him seriously. Eli, I tell truth. Beacon broken. But maybe not. What do you mean? Lyra held the small disc closer to the firelight. Inside, faint lines of light pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. Wake again. Eli's stomach tightened. You mean it's active? She nodded. If they hear, they come. He cursed under his breath. So we don't have much time. Lyra looked scared. If they come, they take Novi, kill you. Eli laughed bitterly. Let them try. She didn't understand all his words, but she felt his fire, the human stubbornness she couldn't explain. Then something changed. The child stirred, waking up slowly. Small lights danced around Novi's fingers, glowing brighter than before. Lyra gasped and tried to cover the light, but it was too late. The air around them shimmered, the same energy that came from the beacon. Eli felt the hair on his arms rise. What's happening? Lyra's voice shook. Novi! Calling. Calling who? Lyra looked at the child, her face pale. All who listen. Eli stood quickly and scanned the sky. Above the trees something flickered, a faint blue light moving between the clouds. Not lightning. Not a star. His gut turned cold. We have to move now. Lyra hugged Novi tightly. I cannot stop it, she whispered. Eli knelt beside her. Then we hide until it stops. She looked at him, her voice trembling. You help me. Why? He paused. Because once I was left behind too. Her eyes softened. For the first time, she truly understood him. Two beings from different worlds, both abandoned, both surviving. The sound in the sky grew louder, a deep humming, the kind that shook the air itself. Eli grabbed his gear. We go to the caves near the ridge. Follow me. Lyra stood, holding Novi close. The child's small lights faded slowly, but the damage was done. The beacon's pulse had been seen. As they ran through the forest, the morning light dimmed under the shadow of something massive above the clouds. Lyra looked up, her voice breaking. They find us. Eli turned back, eyes full of steel. Then we make sure they don't take you. They ran harder, the forest around them alive with light and wind. The alien beacon pulsed faster, echoing through the trees like a heartbeat of doom. Somewhere high above, in the endless sky, ships began to turn, and down on the forest floor, one human and one alien mother prepared to face a storm neither of them could escape. The sky was no longer blue. It burned. A deep humming filled the forest, shaking the ground like thunder trapped beneath the earth. Birds fled in clouds, animals disappeared into the shadows. Above the trees, glowing lights cut through the clouds, sharp, cold, and alive. Lyra looked up, frozen in fear. They come, she whispered. Eli already knew. He didn't need translation. The sound of engines, heavy, perfect, merciless, could only belong to machines not made by humans. He tightened his grip on his rifle and turned to Lyra. Stay close. Don't let go of the kid. They moved fast through the forest. The morning fog twisted around them like smoke. Every few seconds, a beam of blue light scanned the ground, slicing through the mist, searching. Lyra's heart pounded. She knew those lights, search rays from her people's ships. If the beam touched her, they would know. They would come for her and for Novi. Eli grabbed her hand and pulled her under a thick canopy of vines. The beam passed over them, missing by inches. The air smelled like ozone and burning metal. Come on, he whispered. We're close. They climbed up a rocky ridge where the trees thinned out. From the top, Eli could see the sky clearly now. 3 silver ships hovering above the forest, moving like silent predators. Their lights flickered as drones dropped from beneath them, small and fast, scanning everything. Lyra's knees weakened. No escape, she said, voice shaking. They find us. Eli looked at her. Not yet, they haven't. He led her to a narrow cave hidden between the rocks. Inside it was dark and cool. The sound of the ships was duller here, but still strong enough to make the stones vibrate. Eli lit a small lantern and turned to her. You said they'll take the kid. Why, what do they want? Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Novi not normal. His light, not sickness. It is power. They fear him. They think he can change them. Change them how? She hesitated. He feel hearts. When he touch, he make others remember. Feeling. Mercy. Love. They call it weakness. Eli stared at the small sleeping child, the faint glow from his skin lighting the cave. So they want to erase what makes him special. Lyra nodded slowly. They want silence. No more heart. Eli clenched his jaw. Then they'll have to go through me. Lyra looked at him with disbelief. You fight them? They have ships, weapons. He smiled slightly. And I've got something they don't. Stubbornness. She didn't understand the word, but his tone made her almost laugh, even through her fear. Then, a loud crack split the sky. A beam of light hit the forest floor nearby, exploding trees into fire. The shockwave reached the cave, shaking dust from the ceiling. Novi woke and started crying, light pulsing from his small hands. Lyra tried to hush him, but the glow grew stronger. The beacon around her neck lit up again. Eli cursed. They're locking onto us. Lyra looked terrified. I can break it. But need time, Eli nodded. Then you'll have it. He grabbed his weapon and ran out of the cave. Outside, the forest was burning. One of the alien drones spotted him instantly, a sharp flash of light passing across its lens. It fired a plasma bolt that smashed into a tree beside him. Eli rolled to the ground, aimed, and fired back. His bullet hit the drone's power core that exploded in a shower of sparks. 2 more drones appeared, glowing like angry stars. Come on, he muttered, reloading. I've got enough for all of you. He fired again, knocking one out of the air. The second one hit him with a shockwave that threw him backward. He crashed into the dirt, gasping for air. Before the drone could finish him, a bright blue energy burst from the cave. Lyra stood there, her eyes glowing, hands raised. The energy hit the drone and shattered it into pieces. Eli coughed and looked up at her. You can fight too, huh? Lyra's glow dimmed and she staggered. Not long. Drains me. Then we finish this fast, Eli said. Above them, the largest ship descended, its lights blinding. A metallic voice echoed across the forest. Target confirmed. Retrieve the child. Terminate the human. Eli spat blood, raised his weapon, and said under his breath, Over my dead body. Lyra screamed, No! They kill you! He looked back at her. Then run. Keep him safe. Before she could reply, he stepped out from cover and fired toward the ship's landing craft. Explosions ripped through the forest floor. A dozen alien soldiers appeared, tall and shining in armor. Their weapons hummed with deadly light. Lyra's heart froze. Eli, he smiled, tired but fearless. You're not alone anymore, remember? She clutched Novi tightly, tears in her eyes. Eli, please. He took one last breath, aimed carefully, and fired again. The forest lit up with fire and light as human courage met alien steel. Inside the cave, Novi's glow turned bright white, pulsing with his mother's fear. The beacon shattered in her hand, sending one final burst of light skyward. And high above the forest, even the alien ships paused for a moment, as if something unseen had touched them. The forest burned like a dying star. Smoke climbed high into the red sky, twisting with fire and light. The alien ships hovered above the trees, their metal shining like cold suns. And there, in the middle of the chaos, stood a human. Eli's clothes were torn, his arm bleeding, his breath heavy. But his eyes were alive, sharp, steady, fearless. He stood between the cave and the alien soldiers, guarding it with every drop of strength left in his body. From inside, Lyra watched him through tears. She held Novi close, the child's small body glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Eli, she whispered. Please come back inside. He turned his head slightly, enough to meet her eyes. Can't, he said. If they reach you, it's over. A group of alien soldiers advanced through the smoke, their voices cold and mechanical. Human, step aside. The child must be collected. Eli raised his weapon. You want the kid? He said, voice steady. Come and take him. The first soldier fired. A beam of blue energy missed his face by inches. Eli ducked, rolled behind a rock, and fired back. 2 shots, and both perfect. One soldier fell. Another stumbled. More came. Eli ran from cover to cover, firing again, moving like a man who refused to die quietly. Sparks exploded. Trees fell, and the air was filled with sound. Lyra cried out, Eli, stop. You cannot fight them all. He shouted back, I'm not trying to fight them all. Just long enough. She didn't understand what he meant until she saw it. Behind her, Novi's glow was changing. The soft blue light had turned into a brilliant white, pulsing like a heartbeat of the universe. Lyra turned to her child. Novi, what are you doing? The child looked up at her with calm eyes too wise, too gentle for their age. No more fight, Novi whispered softly. The voice was small but echoed like wind inside her mind. Lyra froze. You speak? Light speak, Novi said simply. All here. Outside, Eli fired again, but suddenly the world changed. The air around him shimmered. The gun in his hand grew warm, then quiet. The forest sounds faded. The alien soldiers stopped too, their weapons lowering as if their minds had gone silent. Then, a light and soft and endless spread from the cave, wrapping around everything. It wasn't fire. It wasn't weapon energy. It was peace. Eli blinked, unable to move. He could feel something, not in his body but in his heart. Memories flashed through his mind. His lost team, the crash, his loneliness, his anger. And then, forgiveness. The soldiers stopped attacking. One dropped his weapon and looked at his own hands, as if seeing them for the first time. Above, even the ship seemed to pause midair, their engines flickering. Lyra stepped out of the cave carrying Novi in her arms. The light surrounded them both like a living halo. Her silver hair moved gently in the glowing wind. She walked slowly to Eli and placed her hand on his cheek. "He choose peace," she said softly. Eli looked at her, eyes wet. "He stopped them?" Lyra nodded. "Novi showed them what they forgot. Feeling, heart." The alien soldiers knelt slowly, their armor humming as if alive. The voice from the ship spoke again, but now it sounded different. Not command, but confusion. "What is this? Sensation?" Lyra looked up at the sky. "It is what you lost, mercy." The ship lights dimmed. Then, one by one, they turned and rose higher, disappearing into the clouds without another word. The forest went silent. The fire faded to smoke. Only the soft sound of the wind remained. Eli dropped to his knees, exhausted. His weapon fell beside him. "It's over?" Lyra nodded. "For now. You saved us." He smiled weakly. "No, I just stood here." He did the saving. She looked down at Novi, whose glow was fading. The child's eyes were closing, small hands resting on her shoulder. "Novi?" she whispered. The child smiled faintly. "Sleep now. Flight safe." And then the glow disappeared. Lyra held her child tight, tears falling silently. Eli reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "He's alive," he said softly. "Just resting." She nodded through tears. "Light never die. Only sleep." The smoke cleared. The forest was quiet again, but not dead. Small green leaves were already growing from burned branches. Eli stood and looked at the horizon. "Guess this world's tougher than it looks." Lyra looked at him. "Like you?" he chuckled. "Nah, I'm just human." She smiled gently. "Human and brave," he shrugged. "Maybe, or just stupid." She didn't understand the joke, but she laughed. A soft musical sound the forest hadn't heard before. They buried the broken beacon under a tree. No more signals, no more fear. As the sun rose over the hills, Lyra stood beside Eli holding Novi, whose small hand rested in hers. Eli looked at the sky. "So what now?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Now, we live," he nodded. "Together." She took a deep breath, looking at him, a man from another world who had taught her that kindness was stronger than power. Novi stirred in her arms, whispering softly in sleep. "Home." Lyra looked at Eli. "He say home." Eli smiled. "He's right. You've got one now." The camera of the story pans upward, the forest, the rising sun, and the two figures standing side by side. One human, one alien, one child of light, and the final words echo softly. "Sometimes the greatest power in the universe is not strength, but kindness."